everybody. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the steps I took to create this cute little turtle. So stay tuned. So as you can see, I've already sketched out Squirt from Nemo, or Finding Nemo. I've already sketched him out on the rock using pencil. You can also use charcoal, like a charcoal pencil, or a like a pastel pencil. Those would actually probably work better because they'll erase with water. So here you can see I've gone over it actually with a charcoal pencil so you can see my outline a little better. And what I'm doing is taking some phthalo green and yellow oxide, or what else is it? Yellow ochre. Sometimes I can't remember what that's called. Yellow ochre, and that gives me kind of an olivey green color. And I'm going to just go in and do the base color on his face and fins. I guess they're called fins. I don't, if that's not right, let me know in the comment section what they're actually called on a turtle. I guess on a sea turtle it'd be fins, right? I don't know. On a land turtle it'd be their feet, but I'm not sure on a sea turtle. And I'm not doing him exactly like he is in Finding Nemo because I actually don't even know. I don't have kids, so I've never seen the movie. I just think this turtle is so cute. So that's the whole reason for painting him. Maybe it's a her. I don't know. I just saw pictures and thought, oh, how cute is that? So it's kind of my interpretation of that character. So I'm going to fast forward through some of this because if I don't, this video will be an hour and a half long, and I don't think anybody wants to watch me paint for an hour and a half. I'm not a speed demon when it comes to painting. So I'm doing just an undersection of his shell, and now I'm lightening it up. Words are hard sometimes. Lightening up the color on his fins. Okay, well, I'm lightening it up for this particular fin because we're seeing the underneath side of it, so I want it lighter than the other two that would be actually on his right hand side, because we're seeing the outside of those, so those are going to be just a touch darker, but not quite as dark as his head. So now I'm mixing up a dark brown color for the shell. And I'm just going to do the kind of the base coat and do it all in one color. We lose our design when we do that, but that's okay because I can just kind of reestablish that later. That's just there so that you understand what I'm going to be doing in the future on his shell. So now I'm kind of separating the shell from the leg, or the fin, and I'm lightly kind of stroking on some texture to his fins. I'm kind of doing between a stippling and a light stroke just to add some texture. And I'm going to end up doing this to all of the fins. And I'm darkening, kind of creating a shadow where the fin meets the shell. And I'm going to do this for all 3 of the fins that are showing. And now I'm going to the back fin that I had originally painted lighter, and I'm actually darkening it up. I guess I decided that that would be in shadow, so it should actually be darker. So I'm making it darker than the front 2 fins. I'm kind of defining that shadow between the fin and the shell some more. Now I'm going in with some white to define the white of his eyes. And I'm just going to paint this whole section white, and then I'm going to go in later and put in the iris and pupil. And if you're painting along with me, I would recommend pausing the video so that you can paint at your own pace, since I have some of this sped up. Now that I've got the white in, I'm going to mix up some green and the same color as his head, and go in and clean up the white, making sure that everything's even, that both eyes look the same. Now I'm mixing up a little darker color, and I'm going to go in and define kind of his chin and neck area. I'm going to shadow that a little bit. And you can always dab, I always dab at the color with my finger if I think it's a little too dark, and that'll kind of mute it down a little bit. And I'm back to working on the eyes again, making sure that they're shaped similarly, oh goodness, similarly shaped. That's kind of a tongue twister for me. So one eye is a little bit bigger, so I'm trying to get that worked out. Okay, now that we've got the eyes all worked out, now excuse me, I'm going to go in and start actually working on the eyes and painting in the pupil. And I'm just taking straight black and doing little half circles here. And I'm slowly kind of growing out the pupil, the size of the pupil, because I don't want it to be too big, so I'm just doing it slowly. And now that I have that where I like it, I'm going to add in the iris color here soon, I hope. You can see how slow I paint. I don't I don't rush through anything. I always take my time, and it should be enjoyable. You know, when you sit down at your easel or at these rocks or wherever, you want to take your time and just, you know, kind of get in the zone. And you don't want to be stressed out and feel like you're being rushed through something. It should be an enjoyable process. So now I'm adding, getting some, this is yellow ochre on my paintbrush, and I'm pretty sure this is a round brush because that's what I like to paint with a lot. So it's a number 3 round by Royal and Langnickel, and I'm just gonna add a little color. It might be kind of hard to see in this video. Hopefully it'll show up. Now I'm taking some black and going to put in his mouth, which is just a little smile. And I'm using a 12/0 detail brush by Master's Touch. I love this little paintbrush. I use it a lot for my detail work. And it's tiny, so I can get very fine lines with it. And the main thing with it is to keep it clean during your painting process. And I have a video that I did a while back on how to keep your brushes clean while you paint so that you don't get a lot of buildup down by the barrel. And it's really what I have in my water glass that's on my palette. There is a loofah sponge in the bottom of it. So you can go back and look at that video if you want to see how I do that. But it's pretty much just a loofah sponge in the bottom, and I can use that to kind of rub my brushes on, and it gets all the paint down by the barrel out of it so that they stay very clean. And it really extends the life of my paintbrushes. So now I'm getting some, I'm going to guess that's burnt sienna. It's been a while since I painted this rock, but burnt sienna is one of my favorite colors, so I'm sure that's what I'm using. And this is I'm using it for kind of his markings on his head and probably on his fins as well. And now I'm going down and I am using the same color. So it's the burnt sienna for the design, kind of the pattern that he has on his little fins or flippers or whatever these things are called. Now that I have the pattern done, now I'm going to go in and what I call trapping. I'm going to use black and outline everything. And for me, this just makes the whole design kind of pop. And I use Liquitex. This is an airbrush paint, and I use the black, opaque black. And let me make sure that's what it's called. Yeah, opaque black. It's 5211 in the Liquitex. And I like to use it because it's a very liquidy black, but it's very dark. So I can use my fine detail brush, and I I can get in there and I can outline everything. And that's what they call trapping. And even though it's on a black background, the black in my background is not as dark as the opaque black airbrush paint. So you can actually still see the outline even against that black background. It also will help you clean up any of your edges. And I do recommend when you're pulling lines like this that you pull towards you. It's easier to get a smooth line pulling towards you than it is away from you. So you'll see I'll rotate my rock so that I can pull towards me. And you see how just those black lines really make his face pop? Now I'm going to go in and define the lines for the pattern on his shell. And when you're doing these outlines, just take your time so that you can get a very thin, perfect, precise line. If you do screw up, you just go back and just paint over your mistakes. It's no big deal. And with a little bit of practice, you'll get really good at doing these outlines, doing the trapping. It's one of my favorite parts, is doing the black outlines. I personally just love the way it looks. You don't have to do it if you don't like kind of the outlined look. You don't have to do it. It's a personal preference. It's something that I think makes it look better, but that doesn't mean that it does, that everybody else agrees. So it's certainly not something you have to do. So you can kind of see where I'm defining the pattern on his shell. And now I'm going to start trapping the design on his fins, flippers, feet, whatever you call these things. Somebody tell me what they are in the comment section so I'll know in the future. So I'm adding a little of the yellow ochre to some of his markings just to give a little highlight to them. I'm not painting them solid. I just was adding a little so that there would be some definition to them. Now I'm taking the yellow ochre, that same color, and I'm starting in the middle of that tile on his back pattern and kind of stroking down in like a starburst pattern. see on these, I'll start in the center and kind of do a starburst out radiating from the center. I want the center to be the darkest and then the pattern to radiate out from that. And if you get too much paint on there, you can just hit it with your finger and it really softens it up. And I'm going to do this for each one of the tiles on his back. Now I'm taking some burnt sienna and I'm going over that pattern just to add some more dimension to it. Just stroking on some more color, so it just gives it a little bit more definition. You can see how it kind of makes it pop. And I'm not covering up the yellow completely. I'm just adding a little bit of this color to it. Now I'm taking some of this and I'm just stippling on a little bit of color to his nose area and cheek area. This is just adding a little texture to the paint. Or not to the paint, to his skin or whatever. I don't know what turtle skin is called, so. It just makes it so it doesn't look flat. So now I'm taking a mixture of white and that olive green color that I used on his face, and I'm going to be hitting some areas where I want some highlights. So on his eyebrows, his cheeks, I'll add some to his shell, and I believe his fins as well. And now I'm going to take some of the yellow ochre onto my little detail brush, and I'm wiping most of it off, and then I'm going to hit some areas, and I'm kind of buffing the paint onto the rock. And this is just going to kind of make these little areas kind of glow a little bit. I'm using very little paint and just kind of buffing it on. And you'll see it's going to kind of bring that area to life. And I'm hitting the areas kind of where I put in the highlights. Kind of like it's not like dry brushing, it's more like glazing the color on. It's really watered down. And see how it's really making the shell, you know, kind of spark to life. I'm going to do that to each of the areas around where I have the highlights and into the corners. That's what's going to help kind of define and give some roundness to each of the plates on his shell. And then doing the same thing to his flippers. Now I'm going to take some more black and I'm going to go over his shell again, because when you kind of buff in that lighter color, it kind of dulls down the black. So I want that to be, you know, real sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and redefine the black trapping or black outline. Now I'm going to go back in with some white and add in some more of the highlight. Just one last highlight. I'm sorry, I get notifications all during the day and I can't turn my phone off. I have to keep double checking, but I know it gets annoying hearing all this beeping and little tunes off my phone. I apologize for that. So now I'm mixing up a mixture of phthalo blue and white, and I'm going to put this, it's kind of a watered down mixture, and I'm going to glaze that on around the turtle's body, because I want it to kind of glow behind him to indicate that he's in water. And you see I'm going to do it around his body, and then I'm going to bring it out, and I want it lighter around his body, and I want it to kind of gradually fade out. And I do this a lot. It's glazing and then using my finger to kind of help smear it. And again, I'm kind of buffing this color on. And I'm sorry, I drift out of camera view. I get wrapped up in what I'm doing and not paying attention to where my hand is. And you see I'm kind of just buffing that color on. You're going to see that I'm going to build up the color closer to the body so that it really looks like the light is shining from behind him. But then I want it to fade to black. You remember this acrylics always dry darker. There's a kind of a color shift as it dries. So you can go on a little lighter than what you think you need to, because it is going to dry a little darker. There are some of the more expensive brands that don't have much of a color shift. I'm using Liquitex Basics, and they do tend to dry just a little bit darker, not much. And I'm working on the gradation from around the body to the edge of the rock. See, now I'm going to be lightening up the color right around him. This is where it's going to really look like it's kind of glowing behind him. See, a lot of people think that you can't blend acrylics very easily, but when you use kind of a glaze, using water in there and turning it more into a glaze, it works fairly well. And there you go. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please share this video with anybody that you think would be interested in painting this rock. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.